Eric, that's a big fish.
Jeremy.
That's a big fish.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. 22 inches.
22 inches, but dadgum, she's big.
Oh my goodness. Look at that baby.
That is a fat fish. What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the Monster Bass channel. My name is Jeremy. I run the page in the channel called Fishing Lone Star. Would love for you to come give me a follow or subscribe over there. But today we're talking about summer bass fishing, but the opposite of what most people talk about fishing deep. We're going to talk about fishing shallow, but specifically the baits and lures that you can use fishing shallow. Even more specifically, the baits and lures that I was recently using on Lake Fork during a tournament we were fishing. And the reason why I want to use this footage and demonstrate to you these lures is because the standard of legitimacy, if bass on Lake Fork are eating these lures, bass are pretty much all over the country are probably going to eat these lures as well. I will say Lake Fork is one of the best bass fishing lakes in the country, but it's also one of the most pressured lakes in the country. Fish there see lures of all shapes, sizes, colors, varieties. The main ones that you see over and over and over again. Not to say you got to be like really good to trick them, but the lures we're going to use today, I can confidently say we have used to catch fish. So let's dive in. All right, now the main reason why I want to talk about fishing shallow in the summer is because, yeah, sure, a lot of bass go deep, they school deep, you can catch them deep, but let's just face it, the majority of anglers who are fishing from the bank are fishing from a kayak or may not have the confidence to go catch them deep. A lot of people just like to beat the bank and catch them shallow. But there's still shallow fish and a lot of fish to be caught in the summer up shallow. And here's the baits and lures that we use to catch them. Let's start with the top of the water column and we'll work our way down. I'll give you a couple different baits and lures in each category, a couple colors to consider, starting with top water and a top water popper. All right, now this is the Mad Max 2.0. Yes, I throw it on braid, and yes, I put some pegs or bobber stops in front of it. That just kind of helps stiffen your braid a little bit right here in front of this hook so it doesn't get caught in these trebles. But the Mad Max 2.0, this smaller size popper does really well for a couple reasons. One, bass are targeting small bait fish in the summer, but they're also targeting bluegill. So aside from kind of this cracked shad color, another color that Monster Bass offers in the Mad Max is the ghost gill, or kind of that bluegill color. Love this one. Both of these work extremely well. But one thing that I have used a lot of as well is another smaller popper here by Castaic. The reason why I want to mention both of these is the Mad Max 2.0 walks really well. Not that this one doesn't, but this one with that bigger cupped lip will splash more. So it kind of depends upon where you're fishing and kind of how you're wanting to target them. I personally wouldn't get too caught up in the colors unless you're fishing extremely clear water. Lake Fork is not that clear, so I was mainly throwing bone in the Castaic popper, but these work really well in other parts of the country. Now, I mentioned I throw it on braid. A lot of people will use a monofilament line or a copolymer or a monofilament leader, but the reason why I use braid is because I also use a fiberglass rod. You don't have to use a fiberglass rod. The point though of the rod that you want to use, you want to have a rod with a lot of give. One, because you can catapult these baits further or launch them further as you go to cast, right? That parabolic bend is going to allow you to get some distance in your cast, and the parabolic bend of your rod is also going to allow you to set the hook on these small treble hooks and keep the fish pinned with these small treble hooks. And then last, the reel I use is just a Lew's LFS. It's a standard reel by Lew's. I love it. It's aluminum frame, works really great. The gear ratio doesn't really matter because you're mainly popping or walking or moving the lure with your rod, not with your reel. So all you're really using the reel for is to pick up slack or obviously catch up to the fish when you're trying to get them to the boat. All right, now that popper worked really well in the mornings, and quite honestly actually worked throughout the day later as well, but we were targeting around bluegill beds is where that popper really seemed to work. But once the sun got a little bit higher, the top water bite died off a little bit. We moved a little bit further or deeper down in the water column. Now, when I say that, instead of top water, we're talking like, 2-3 foot down. We were only fishing about 5 to 7 foot of water. So in that kind of 2 to 5 foot range, and we were throwing swim jigs, all right? Now, I will say the biggest fish of the tournament for us, I say us because it was a partner tournament, came on the swim jig. My buddy Eric caught it. It was nearly a 7-pounder. So I use that to say, again, we were using a bluegill style or a bluegill color swim jig, right? This is the V&M swim jig partnered with the J-Bug trailer. And you can see these little curly tails. They move really well, they kick and swim really well. We were also kind of dyeing the tips in a chartreuse, so we were using Dip and Glow to dye those in a chartreuse color. But that bluegill color around bluegill beds, what we basically were hoping for, and it worked, is to find big fish that were hovering around bluegill beds, waiting for them to slip up and they could pounce on it. And that's exactly what we were catching them on, is swim jigs in and around bluegills, like I said, anywhere between a foot to 2 foot to about 5 foot of water. But what we also found is some of those bluegill beds were in 7 to 8 foot of water or 9 foot of water. So depending upon your body of water, shallow could be a relative term. Just look for bluegill beds and throw bluegill presentations around them. Now, sometimes I will also put a paddle tail behind my swim jig, all right? This just happens to be a little more subtle presentation. I kind of vary them a little bit. If I'm fishing a little bit dirtier water, I want a little more thump, I'll use a paddle tail, but this is what I was using, was that J-Bug trailer on that watermelon red swim jig by V&M. Also, real quick with the swim jig, I like to throw mine on 20-pound fluorocarbon, especially at Lake Fork or any other lakes that are similar to it that have a lot of timber. You want to throw fluorocarbon around timber. If you're fishing grass lakes, you want to throw braid. I throw mine on a heavy rod. It's a TFO 7.3 fast action, and I love the Hypermag. Now, this is a higher end reel, the loose Hypermag, but if you can afford it or you want to splurge and get yourself one or treat yourself, this is the reel to get. The Hypermag is fantastic. It's probably my favorite reel that Lew's offers. Now, this J-Bug we also used on a Texas rig, which is what we'll transition next as we worked down in the water column, and why and when we made that transition. Let's talk about that. All right, now as we're fishing, and I'm sure probably where you're at as well in the country or part of the country, it got hotter throughout the day, the sun got higher, and we found that both the topwater bite and the moving bait, the swim jig bite, both kind of died off a little bit, which is when we went to that J-Bug, right? So, or a crawl creature style bait. This is a relatively small, compact one. Again, about a bluegill size. We did dip those tails in chartreuse. The reason why we did that is because if you ever notice bluegills this time of year, they have a really kind of fluorescent tail to them. So dipping just the last little bit of claw, about that much that my fingers are covering, in chartreuse will give it that translucent, kind of highlighted tail that bluegills have. And I say bluegill, could be a brim, could be sunfish, whatever they are in your body of water. I just call them bluegill. But we were targeting, again, those, but we had to slow down and kind of drag or hop these a little bit along the bottom. And we kind of noticed that that was what it was going to take to get some more bites as the day went on. So kind of in the noon to afternoon part, the Texas rig is what got it done, along with a Texas rig worm. So I'll show you that here. All right, so when it comes to Texas rig worms, I throw a big 11-inch worm. This is the Egg Zone Blitz worm. It actually floats. So what that means, when it hits the bottom, it's gonna stand up like this, right? And kind of wave in the fish's face. Don't be intimidated by an 11-inch worm. The bass inhale it, right? When they go to take a bite, they open their mouth and they suck in. So they're gonna take in this whole worm and they almost always get the head as well. This is a summer crawl color. The one that I also like to use is kind of like a California 420. It's a black top with watermelon red underbelly. That also works really well. So try a Texas rig worm as the day gets on. I guess the sun gets higher and the day goes on, and I think you'll find some bites come on that as well. So kind of as the tournament went on, we would vary between the blitz worm or that Texas rig crawl, but we found that they were eating the more compact baits better. So the swim jigs or the kind of crawl or creature baits, they were eating better than the 11-inch blitz worm, although we did catch some good fish on it. And throughout the summer, I still catch a ton of good fish on this. Now, I will say when it comes to the weight, I usually vary with a pegged weight of a 1/4 ounce to 3/8 ounce, all right? 1/4 ounce, I normally fish up shallow, 0 to 5 foot of water, or if there's minimal wind. If the wind picks up or I'm fishing between 5 to 10 foot of water, I will upgrade to the 3/8 ounce. And I do peg my weight almost always, or with that bobber stop right there. I just like the feel when I'm fishing around timber, rocks, grass, etc., of knowing that my weight is connected. I just like to feel a little bit better. I still use 20-pound fluorocarbon here. You can go to 17 or even 14 depending on how clear your body of water is. With fluorocarbon though, it's pretty clear in the water. I don't believe bass can see it very well, so 20 pounds is what I go with. I've had no problems with bites on 20-pound fluorocarbon. This is the Lew's Custom Pro Reel. It's a fantastic reel. I will say though, the main thing about your reel is you want to have probably a 7.5 to 1 gear ratio or higher when it comes to your bottom contact baits. The way you're working this though is by kind of just lifting your rod tip or hopping and then pointing it back down and reeling in your slack, all right? So hop up or drag up, point back down, reel in your slack, all right? You're not moving the bait with your reel, you're moving the bait with your rod, all right? We've done lots of other videos on Texas rigs, so go back and watch some of those if you wanna see that technique a little bit more. But that was what was working. That's how we were catching them, and that blitzworm is a great option to try. All right, guys, if you want to know, though, how we did in the tournament, if you want to see our practice day and how we did, you'll have to go to my channel and watch that. I'll be publishing those videos soon, so go ahead and watch for those videos of tournament fishing on Lake Fork. But the moral of the story here is go fish shallow in the summer, all right? If you like fishing shallow, if you're a bank fisherman, kayak fisherman, or you just like to beat the bank, even from a boat, like I do, there are fish to be caught shallow. Topwater poppers work really well early. Swim jigs work well as well around bluegill beds. Just try to mimic a bluegill color. And then as the sun gets high, work the bottom because fish are gonna slow down a little bit. They're gonna hug the bottom and they're gonna react to either a big worm or a creature bait or a crawl on bottom. Again, try to stick to those kind of bluegill-ish or sunfish-ish colors. Those should work really well for you. Also, if you like this video, drop me a comment below. Make sure you subscribe right here to the Monster Bass channel, where we're putting out lots of content and great videos to help you become a better angler, to help you fish better. Make sure you also go check out Monster Bass, the Regional Pro boxes. They're fantastic. I love them every single month. You will too. Monster Bass, go catch one.